We are live with Charles Lee. It's Nicholas Alexander Karadza and Tomislav Mio Karadza. I don't know if I've ever said my full name like that. Have I? Maybe.
The Mio part? Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. That was supposed to be my first name. My first name was supposed to be Mio. Charles, do you have a middle name?
Nope.
Charles Lee.
Yep.
Let's jump into
That's
it.
a lot easier than
Yeah, that's a
Tomislav
lot
Mio.
easier. Yeah, what's your name? Charles Lee. What's your name? Tomislav Mio Karadza. Charles, let's walk right into it. So before we explain what you're doing here at Rockstar, you were born in China.
That's right.
Somehow you do not speak Chinese. Mandarin.
That's right.
You don't speak Mandarin, or what is the other language that I'm thinking of?
Cantonese.
Cantonese.
I speak Mandarin, but I just never went to Chinese school.
Okay, got it. So walk us through, you're born in China.
Yeah.
Take us through this journey of your life.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. So my parents are from Shanghai, China. So it's one of the major cities aside from Beijing. And I was born there. And when I was born, I didn't know who my parents were. All I knew was my parents were very old. And I quickly realized the parents that I thought were my parents were actually my grandpa and grandma. Because when I was born, my parents flew to Japan to start their journey. And I never really saw them.
So their journey to leave China?
Yeah, they left China.
So what do you mean to start their journey though? Like that was really the start of what?
Yeah, so back then, China, I think it was communist, and they just recently opened up. And my parents went to Japan because
You're going to have to keep staying closer to the mic there.
Yeah, Japan was in a bubble during that time. Everything was very good, and the salary, what you can make in Japan in 1 week was a month's worth of salary income in China. So they went to Japan to have a better life.
Do you know, I'm curious, this is, you were too young probably to know, I just don't know if you've spoken to them after the fact. In that scenario though, was the cost of living also, 4 times higher as well? So even though they were making more money, they were making what they would make in a weekend, what they could make in a month in China, they were making a week in Japan. Were they spending that much more as well?
Yeah. So the thing about Japan is that you can have a very luxurious life, or you can have a very basic life. You can basically live and eat from a convenience store. The convenience store has bread, bento box, coffees, juice, everything you need to live. So for them, they worked, during the day, and then they studied Japanese during the night, and they saved every single lunch that the company provided them. And that was enough for 1 month's salary in China. And they sent the money back to their parents, and that's how they supported me all the way from 0 to 3 years old.
So when did you realize your grandparents weren't your parents?
Right. So every year, there were these mysterious couple that came back and gave me some toys, stuffed toys. And, I just remember vividly that these people were super nice to me. And they left this smell. I think it was my mom's like shampoo smell on the pillow that I really, really liked and I resonated with. And yeah, it took about 3 years for me to realize they were actual my parents. And I didn't understand the concept between what's a parents and what's a grandparents. They're just people that raised me up.
So when they were working in Japan and they were able to send money and provide for you back home in China, what were they doing in China before going to Japan?
Okay, so back then, my father was a musician. He played professional violin, while my mom was a professional ballet performer. So they were kind of in an art school.
Wow.
But it was dictated by the government. So they will do performance for different parties that came to China.
And then I guess they got some set salary or some set pay for
I believe so. That's where they met. Yeah.
But it wasn't enough to satisfy them, and that's why they left. You said to start their journey in Japan.
That's
What
right.
year do you think, when you say start their journey, what year was that they left?
1988, when I was born.
So, and they left in 88.
That's right.
So probably they had you and they realized, oh my gosh, we now have this son, we want a better life. And you made your parents go on this journey. So they made it in Japan. They teach themselves Japanese because they didn't know Japanese.
Yep.
And then do you get pulled over to Japan at some point?
Yeah, when I was 3 years old.
Okay, so at 3 years old, that's when they took you over.
That's right.
And where were you living in Japan?
It's a city called Osaka. Yeah, do you guys know?
I've heard of it.
Yeah.
I've heard of it. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know much about Japan. Definitely heard of it.
And
It's like
Osaka-
Manchester version of England.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, why Manchester? Because there's a lot of manufacturing there?
No, it's the people from Osaka thinks Osaka is the capital of Japan, and they have a very strong accent that regular Japanese don't understand.
Oh, really?
But the people are very, very nice, less business-like, more relationship-based. Yeah, lots of parties,
Got it.
lots of good food.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so you get there at 3 years old, and where are you living? There in a condo?
Right. So, I don't know where my parents lived prior to me arriving in Japan, but once I arrived there, they got a very nice condo for us, but it was a rental. And for the next 10 years, we just rented.
What were your parents doing in Japan? We know what they were doing in China first. Did we? Did I
Yeah.
miss-
So my dad at that time, when he first got started, he was in a warehouse carrying, restocking for, I think, convenience store. And then my mom worked in a sales position. She worked in a luxury furniture, but Chinese luxury. Yeah, like elephant horns and stuff like, yeah,
I feel like this is just such a different world to me.
it is.
Like I feel like this is
You
completely.
mean from our upbringing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
I
mean,
have just never been to Japan, never been to
Yeah.
China. I just can't even fathom this whole world.
there's just a lot of similarities between so many immigrant stories that
The-
I've
the
heard. Whether
immigrant
it's people coming
story,
to
yes.
Toronto, it's just there's so many parallels
Yeah.
that you can draw. It's around the work ethic and the I don't want to necessarily say sacrifice, but the delayed gratification.
That's right.
The fact that they were willing to sacrifice something early on with the meals and just living out of whatever the convenience store could provide to be able to get something down the road further. And
Yeah.
it's that was almost the norm and expected back then. Whereas now this concept of delayed gratification, everyone wants everything immediately,
Immediate. yeah.
everything, and it's just there's a big distinction there that I think I see because they strived and they ended up getting so much. But anyway, sorry, I don't want to interrupt the story. So where
Yeah.
do you guys go from here? So you guys are there. You've been renting for 10 years. How does this journey then kind of move from Japan? Maybe there's something else in the middle, or
Yeah.
move on, or move from Japan to Canada.
Just back up to the point of great delayed gratification. My parents, when they first went to Japan, they had absolutely nothing. All they had was one bag of rice and a $100 equivalent of Canadian, and that's how they started. And they didn't know the language. They didn't have any connections whatsoever. But my dad had a skill. The skill was he was professional violinist, and then basically he went to interview at one of the most prestigious university in Kyoto, and then he got in full scholarship, and he lived in the professor's home, and the professor provided everything for him.
So that was when he first went there. So when you were still in China, he was going to school there and
That's right.
working, I would imagine.
So he was working at a warehouse, and then when he got off work, he was doing violin, and he thought, you know what, I need a master's degree or some sort of education that's recognized in Japan. So he just went to the professor's place, blindly just played. I don't know. He did whatever he had to do to earn the full scholarship and live in the professor's home.
Holy moly.
So he basically took him in. Yeah.
So basically your dad's other skill was to bust his ass to make sure that he just kind of had to do what he had to do.
That's all he knew, violin, all his life. Yeah.
So your mom was a dancer, he was a violinist.
Right. I think during that time, my mom did some part-time job teaching ballet, but quickly she went to the high-end furniture store, and she did very, very well there while supporting my dad through the university. Even though he was all paid for, but still, someone had to make the living and pay the
Sure,
the
you
rent.
still need food and
That's
things.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what next? You guys buy a place in Japan?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so Japan is almost exact opposite from North America, in my opinion. Remember, you often say that you want to live in a world where the savings gets rewarded.
Oh, here we
Right.
go. Now we're going to have to go into that.
So in Japan, it's exactly like that. People save because there's almost no inflation at that time, and house value is like a car. It's a depreciating asset. So people had one car, one house, one job for their life, and that's a very very small life.
Wow. So the houses were not going up in value. The Japanese yen was going up in value. No, the Japanese yen relative to the houses was going up in value. Their savings was not losing value.
That's right.
Real estate over time during that era, so from 1991 to the year 2000 or whatever, that 9 or 10 year period. Even now, property prices, that's what we kind of refer to from North America, the lost decade in Japan, right? So property prices were not going up.
Not going up. Still not going up.
So property prices are still flat.
But they came down and they're flat.
They just lose value, like almost half of the value by the time it's 20 years.
Really?
There's still a sense of, if you're not buying anything brand new, it's used. How can you sell a used product more than a brand new product?
That's the
Same
perception.
thing with
So
properties.
if you buy a condo in Osaka,
Yeah,
for, I don't know what the price would be in Canadian dollars, but let's just say, $1 million.
that's right.
After 20 years,
Yeah.
I can't resell that for $1 million.
No,
What am I reselling that for?
At most,
This is so
200,000.
confused. This is so, how much?
at most 200,000. That's why they don't move. I know my friends that I grew up with. If I were to go back today to Osaka, the city, their parents would still be living in the same house that we were in, and maybe my friends are still living with the parents.
But your friends are still living with their parents, not because they can't afford a place then.
They can't afford as well. There's just not. There's no concept of ownership because it
Because
becomes
things
worthless.
go down in value.
Yeah,
So the majority of people then have
rent.
no...
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And if you were to decide to buy a home, usually it's a tear down. So you buy a lot, they tear down, they do a custom build, and you live there for generations.
Okay, that's what
Stuck in a negative equity.
Stuck in negative equity because the property goes down in value. So you build
More
something and it's costing you so much money to build, X number of dollars to build, and then over time it just loses value.
Right. So you'll owe more than
This is
what
like
it's worth.
my brain can't even comprehend this. So at this point, then your savings go up in value. So everybody there is motivated to save money and not spend. And you have a demographic base, from what I understand, in Japan over the last 20 or 30 years. The demographics are an aging population.
That's
so
right.
So you have people spending less. So the economy is shrinking from less spending. And there's this environment, and I don't know if that's because people are spending less, but there's this environment where property values are going down.
Yeah.
So there's no real motivation to stick your money as a place to save it in a property, because why would you do that? It goes down in value.
That's right.
This is like
Yeah, I'm trying to look up the Japanese real estate price index because I gotta see this.
Yeah.
And immigration is not like Canada, right? We are a perfect example. I was there for 10 years. My parents were there probably 12, 13 years. We never got a Japanese citizenship. And we never owned anything.
Wow.
All we did was we saved for that 10 plus years, and we saved, I think, about 100,000 equivalent of USD. That's how we got started in Canada.
Okay, so before we get there, Nick, what I just have to get through my mind is that if the Japanese yen relative to the US dollar, like the cross rate to the US dollar or Canadian dollar, I wonder how the Japanese yen has done. Now I have to go look at this because I need to know what happened to the Japanese yen relative to the Canadian dollar over that period.
Okay.
Like, did the Japanese yen appreciate? Like, is this a local thing that was happening, or did this extend to other countries where the Japanese yen went up in value against the Canadian dollar? I kind of think it probably did. Anyway,
Yeah.
so you save up this money, 100,000 US dollars, and then why did you come to Canada and not the US?
So, in Japan, if you ever watch local news, almost every hour you get an alert, and the alert is like some province earthquake, some province earthquake, And Japan, as you know, it has a lot of natural disasters. And we experienced the biggest earthquake in 1995, where the highway, just imagine like a Gardner Expressway, the whole thing float down. And we experienced that.
I think I remember
Oh, wow.
that.
Charles is showing us a
yeah.
picture that looks like the Gardner Expressway, but tipped over on its side, the whole thing.
Yeah. So this was the highway that connected Kobe. Maybe you know Kobe from the Kobe beefs.
Oh,
Kobe
wow.
to
Okay.
Osaka. Yeah. The two city was like destroyed. And I remember it was 3 days after my birthday. For the entire week, we knew it was coming. We didn't know when, so we slept under the dining table, just waiting for that moment. And then it came on 1995, I think January 17th, 5 a.m. Entire thing, shelf, everything. Like, it was like I was taking drugs or something. Everything was delusional
How'd you know it was coming?
because the news told us it's
So-
coming.
Oh,
They
there
detected
was
some
there was
tremors.
something
Yeah,
on,
they have the sensitivity
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Holy cow.
We knew it was coming this week. We didn't know when, and we might die. So just pack your stuff and sleep under the table, because we didn't have basements. Nobody had basements.
Holy smokes. You're like introducing me to an entire new world that I had no comprehension of it at all.
Here's the
Okay.
Japanese. This I believe is the price index, the real estate price index. So you can see how it spiked,
Yeah, got
and
it.
then it came back down.
When's that spike on that chart?
And then it's like leveled off. When I zoom in, it's hard. This chart's from 2000. This is from 84 to 2018. So that spike is relatively early 90s or something. That it's when I zoom in, it gets all blurry.
Okay, so then everything came down. It looks like it hasn't gone
And
up
then it's leveled off for a time period, which we know the stagflation that we've seen in Japan. They've been trying to get inflation for
forever.
Yeah.
Forever.
Because
More than a
everybody
decade
just saves
now.
their money, and it's in the mentality. Everybody's just stuffing money under the mattress.
yeah.
not
So the
spending it.
velocity of
There's
money's
no-
got to be just tiny, like non-existent there. I would imagine.
Speaking of mentality, that's the other thing that had a strong impact on me when I was growing up in Japan. And to this day, it influenced my mindset and my confidence. For example, there is this word in Japanese. It's called mottainai. Mottainai means feeling of regret for wasting things. So it's a very scarcity mindset, right? For example, when you have rice, we cannot even waste one bit of rice. Don't throw anything away. When you go shopping, you keep all the bags. And keep and improvise. Keep and improvise. Never throw anything away. It goes very deep in roots of how Japanese think. Another thing would be shoganai, which means it can't be helped. So when there is a natural disaster or something terrible that happens, it's a way for them to get over it fast. Shoganai.
Wow.
So
So you're bringing those points up because you think that way of thinking has ingrained in you, and it's
Yeah.
affected your confidence in some way.
yeah, biggest one even till now is how can I have minimum impact on others when I take action? And that goes with anything. For example, if we were in Japan today, I would never be able to speak up in front of you guys because you guys are my seniors and I have all the respect. So unless you're giving me the permission to speak, I will never be able to speak up. And that goes throughout the company, the society, even among friends. And we have an entire different language for seniors, even if it's 1 year old, older than me. Does that exist in
In North America,
uh-huh.
it doesn't exist. There's a certain respect I find in Europe for seniors, a certain amount. But here, because there's a certain amount of wisdom that's passed on, like that person knows how to take care of the vineyards. So they're going to teach you how to take care of the vineyards, and there's a certain respect that comes from that because they've been doing it. They have the magical way to water the vines and take care of everything. They know when to harvest, and that's not written down anywhere. So it's passed on. So there's just like a natural respect that
Right.
comes from the people who know.
yeah.
Where here in North America, I feel it's like zero.
Yeah, like when I call you, I call, hey Nick, hey Nick, hey Tom, right? I can never do that in Japanese. There's a whole new language for calling your superiors.
Wow.
So things like that, it's really hard to break up.
Charles, I had no idea.
Yeah.
So, okay, so then you get here to Canada in 2001, 2002, 2000, no, 2004-ish.
We came to Canada in 2000.
In 2000.
In
You
2000.
decided Canada, it sounded like we got off a path there, but you came to Canada because of all these earthquakes in Japan, and so you think Canada's super safe?
Yes. Also, we have some family members here, and we just want to have a better, bigger life, a life that. Okay, let's go back to another mentality thing too. In Japan, you don't speak up of your worries and your emotions. You are always suppressing your emotions. You're always taking in more stress. You don't. There's no outlet, and
Is that why I always hear the suicide rate in Japan is always really high?
yeah. So if you visit Japan, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. But that's from outside looking in. If you actually live there, it's a totally different.
Okay, so
country.
the context that you're having around this, your perception of this, when you're living in the fish bubble, you don't see it.
You don't see it.
Did you realize this when you came to Canada, or did this come from your parents
This came
because
from
they
my
were
parents.
they were born in China and China
right.
was different?
That's right.
Really?
Yeah.
So Japan in some ways was more oppressive than a communist China?
In terms of
It's social, it's culture, I guess the the social rules
I
between
think it was the
people.
culture shock from what they were used to. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
yeah, in terms of like freedom of speech and stuff like that, for sure. Japan, it's like an unwritten rule.
So when you, sorry, just to backtrack for sure. So you're saying Japan, you felt there was less freedom of speech than in China?
According to my parents. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So they had that context from China. So then they realized that you guys want to get out of Japan, and you come to Canada in 2000,
2000.
and you get to where? Vancouver?
Vancouver. Yeah, that's right. And specifically, we went to Richmond in Vancouver. And Richmond in Vancouver, to me, was like a Chinatown. So I came to Canada to learn English. Instead, I go to elementary school. On the hallway, all I hear is Chinese.
Got it.
That was so weird.
And at this point, you didn't even speak Chinese.
That's right. So
You learned Chinese in Canada?
Yeah. So the way I grew up
Nick, you
was
can't even make this stuff up.
Yeah.
every time my parents talk to me, they will speak to me in Mandarin, and I will respond in Japanese. That's how we communicated, and that created some burden between us because our communication fluidity as well as the depth of the conversation always has some issues. When I came to Canada, I learned Chinese. I learned how to speak Chinese.
And that was Mandarin.
That was Mandarin. Yeah. It was. Yeah.
So you learned to speak Mandarin, and then
In Richmond, BC.
in Richmond, BC, and that also enriched the quality of communication between you and your parents.
Just basic level. So that's when I felt like I had some sort of identity crisis because I thought like a Japanese. I thought I was Japanese.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. And I spoke this broken Chinese, try to make friends with the Chinese people in Richmond.
And they were like, who
And
are you?
That's right. And they had this like accent, right? They couldn't figure out what accent it was. It was a mixture of Japanese, Chinese.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
And how was your English?
Oh, my English was zero. I went to get a test from ESL. I think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the governing body. I think I was level 1. All I could say was ice cream.
Oh, good.
Or-
Good choice. That's a good words to learn.
Orange. Yeah.
Holy smokes, Charles.
I couldn't say from A to Z because in Japan you learn English in your high school. I just graduated my elementary, so I never learned English.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then your parents, okay, so before we get into your story here in Canada, your parents are starting over again.
That's right.
What are they doing here in Canada?
That's right. Same thing. So in Japan, before we left, we had a substantial music school business. So my dad, after the university, the professor told my dad, if you don't start applying your knowledge to make some sort of income, you're going to lose your wife. So my mom, thankfully, she is very business-oriented mindset. So she did all the marketing. She basically used my dad's ability to the utmost, right? She extracted everything that he could offer, and we created this music school in Japan. And we had performances to the mayor of the city. It was pretty successful, business-wise and money-wise. So when we came to Vancouver, Richmond, we did the same thing. But except this time, we had the $100,000 in USD. At that time, we were lucky. I think USD to Canadian was 1 to 1.4. So it was very good exchange rate. And my mom, for some odd reason, she said, let's buy a house. Why? Because we need somewhere, like a living room, to teach the music. And instead of renting a commercial space, that's how we're going to do it.
It's funny that she thought that, considering you never bought it. You guys
They
didn't
never
own a
bought it.
home before that.
Never.
To to think that way. Maybe because here you had the opportunity to. And I don't know what the differences will be to buy here versus there.
I asked my mom the question all the time. And it's not like, we lived in a small place. When we first came to Richmond, we rented a townhome. And that townhome was probably bigger than most of the detached home in Japan. So for her to think this is not big enough, we got to have our own land to start our own business before we even have any clients was just nuts. And that was the last $100,000 we had. So anyways, fast forward, 35% down she put on the first home, and she began marketing. And we didn't need any English to begin marketing because of the Chinatown.
Because you were in Chinatown in Canada.
In Canada, it was strange. I couldn't figure out if this was China or we're close to U.S.
Wow. It sounds like your parents might have had an easier time in Canada because they were surrounded by Chinese.
Yeah.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right. But they didn't know that.
Okay, so then they start that. You start going to this high school where you can speak a little bit of Mandarin,
Yep.
basically no English, and
Yep.
Japanese is not useful to you anymore because there's no one speaking Japanese,
That's right.
or very few if there are.
That's right.
Okay, so then what happens? This evolves and you end up in Toronto? When do you get to Toronto?
Okay, before we get to Toronto,
Okay.
there's something I gotta bring out. Once we settled down with the business, it was 2002. My mom, what happened was the kids would learn the English from my dad in the living room, right? And the parents while they were waiting, they were sitting in the back, communicating and talking to my mom. And oftentimes, guess what they were talking about? Real estate. So 2 years in, there was a Taiwanese family who told my mom that you should get into real estate investing. To us, it was a foreign concept. Never mind owning the property, like investing. Like what you mean, having a second house and rent it out? So there was an opportunity in downtown Yaletown. I don't know if you know Vancouver. Yaletown is kind of this. There's a lot of bars. It's near the water. You can bike to the English Bay.
Oh, got it. So I think I do know the area. I think I've been there
Yaletown?
once, and I didn't know that's where it is. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So back then, Yaletown was a little bit sketchy in 2002. But we had an opportunity to purchase a pre-construction there for $190,000, one bedroom, and just for $20,000 deposit was required by the water, right? So my mom listened, she took action, she paid the $20,000 deposit, and she gets cold feet because it didn't come with a parking. So she couldn't, her only objection was, you know what, without parking, no one's gonna rent. And she told out to herself and her parents, her husband, and then she one day told me, Charles, I need you because we're gonna go get our deposit back. And I need someone who can speak English to come with me and a little bit, muscle in case they won't return the deposit.
This is the first real estate deal you're involved in.
Oh my God.
You're the muscle.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't remember which developer it was, maybe Daniels, I don't know, one of the major ones. So I remember making the trip to the presentation center and talking to the sales rep that we need our deposit back. And they didn't even hesitate. They're like, sure, we have like lots of people lining up. Are you sure you want to back out of this? And we're like, yes, certainly. No parking, no deal. Yeah. And that was probably the biggest regret. Yeah, so far.
It's easy to say that looking
something-
back, but at the time it was the right decision, right?
At that time, it was the only 20,000 I think we had. And I don't know, 190, maybe it's a lot for one bedroom without parking, but yeah, to this day, we bring that up on our family.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What is it worth today if you had to guess?
650.
Yeah,
at least.
got it. Yeah. Oh, boy.
We see that on a regular basis.
Yeah.
People, especially new investors, first investment property, after the deal is signed, they're all excited and stuff. A couple of days later, there's a little bit of, there's
Buyer's
the
remorse.
the emotions start kicking in. Like, what about this? What about that?
Yeah.
They're replaying everything in their head, and
Right.
yeah, I think it's fairly common.
Yeah. So that happened. And then it wasn't 6 years later that we took on another opportunity.
So
Yeah.
6 years later, so it's a
6
full
years.
6 years till you circled back, and then your parents ended up buying an investment property.
That's right. So that one, it's their first investment property, yes, but it's also mine because the concept was, so now we're in 2008. The concept was, I'm in university. By the time I finish the 4 years, or
Where were you
5
in
years-
university? Or in BC or here?
No, okay, yeah. So I came to Toronto for U of T.
So for the U of T, so that's
Yeah.
how you ended up coming over here, and that
That's
was in
right.
2008 or just before the six,
Six
and
or
then you
eight,
were here
yeah.
for a little bit, and that's why you guys decided to buy the condo at
That's
that
right.
time.
Well, I was forced to.
Oh, okay. Well,
So
that's
my
even
mom is like,
better.
after 6 years, there's a great opportunity coming up in Richmond. The Vancouver at that time, they were proposing to come up with SkyTrain all the way from Richmond to the downtown core. So all those SkyTrain station was about to be built. And we knew this particular condo was right in front of it. And it was kind of a community. Yeah, it had a community center and also a college all embedded. So it was like a no-brainer. So my parents said, okay, we're not going to back out this time. We're going to pay the deposit and you're going to close on it once you graduate. And that's how we got in.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yes. And that so hold on, just so I'm clear, that was in Richmond though.
That wasn't in
So
Richmond.
so you were here, then they're like, come back here, come back home to
Ye-
close on that property.
That's right.
How I still don't understand how you're in Toronto. Did you
For
then you came
school.
back to Toronto?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, after school he went back home. He went to BC.
I
So-
didn't, I
so
didn't go
when did-
back. I never went back.
Oh, you didn't go back to
I
close on
didn't
the condo
Oh, yes, I closed on call, but I never going back to live.
to live there.
Yeah.
Okay, so you just went
We
took
still
care of
own
that
it.
and lived there. Ah,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay.
And so you rent that one out there?
That's right. That's right.
Wow. Where do your parents live right now?
Now, so my brother also got into U of T as well. So with that, two
There's
sons
there's a brother?
there's a younger
Yeah,
brother.
Okay, got it.
That's another.
Where was he born?
He
I'm
was
joking.
born in Osaka, Japan.
Okay, got
That's
it.
right. But he never went to Japanese school. So he's kind of like me. Like, he grew up in Canada, but he can understand Japanese, but he never went to school there. So
Your,
he speaks
your
a
parents
broken-
like to have children, but leave the
Leave-
country
Before they can go
before
to
the
that.
kids can go to school in
That's
that
right.
country. It's
That's
quite the
right.
strategy. I like it. Okay, so you're here in Toronto. You finished school. What did you finish school for? What was the degree?
I did mechanical engineering.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you did something really smart, mechanical engineering. And then do you go to work as a mechanical engineer here in Toronto?
Right. So on my 4th year, I already got offer from Mitsubishi Aerospace. They were just starting up here in Mississauga for Bombardier business jet. So we did the final assembly for the wing and the fuselage just over here in Mississauga. And that's the company I got in.
So while me and my
Yeah.
friends and Nick are growing up in Mississauga, having fights at Burger King on Friday nights, Charles is making this path and journey. We're older, but Charles is making this educated
He's
journey.
building jets.
Building jets, and we're just running around like a group of
And I didn't even know there was an aerospace thing in Mississauga.
Right.
Wow.
So
Charles'
yeah.
journey to Mississauga is very different than our journey
Yeah.
to Mississauga.
I was born in Mississauga, and then I stayed in Mississauga and grew up
No,
in
you were
Mississauga.
born in Toronto. You were born in Toronto.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you don't even know that part.
I just confirmed this the other day because I didn't know that part either. I'm like, Nick was born in Mississauga. And it was our mom was like, no, he was born in Toronto.
Really?
So maybe I have it mixed up. We'll verify.
No, I think you're right.
We'll verify it again. But okay, so you're doing this job, and then you get the real estate. No, where do you meet us and Rockstar or real estate? How does real estate start entering the picture again here?
Well, hold on. By this point, you have that condo, which was yours through your parents, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you come back here, and so real estate's
Yeah.
entered, but not here yet.
Yeah.
So where does it enter? Like to Tom's point, here.
After that, I worked in Mitsubishi, I think 2 years. Then I got a condo in downtown Toronto.
Okay, who's managing the condo in BC? Your parents were managing it.
We just found out it's being used as an Airbnb.
You mean right now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
I was asking back then, but
we
back
were
then,
so hands-free. So we rented out to various, students. And
okay, so you guys were actively managing
That's
it
right.
on an
There's
ongoing
no
basis.
property manager, no.
Okay, and then now you guys have been so hands off with it.
With it. We
now-
found out it's being used as an Airbnb. So now we're going through the eviction process, and that's another headache that we're going through. But it's sweet and bitter. The price has almost tripled.
Sometimes that's not a bad. Like being used as an Airbnb has the stigma around
Right.
it, which maybe yours is not in good shape. But
No,
there's
it
many
was.
Airbnb.
Yeah.
So then what's the problem? Like why was that you made that seem like such a negative?
Right.
What's the problem with that being such a negative? If you're earning your
the condo
income,
board, but like, is it maybe? It's
and
not
that I was
allowed?
going to ask, yeah, maybe.
So we find out quickly that if we told the condo board, the owner will get charged like $170 a day until this
Okay.
gets resolved. Also, we saw some scratches on the floor, but overall, because there's frequent cleaning that's happening, it's in a decent shape. But we can smell like cigarettes or who knows what else they're smoking.
Okay.
Right? It's just
I can tell you what else they're smoking. but I mean,
yeah, I think we're on the same page. Yeah, it's we don't want to go through that. So
okay. I
yes,
gotcha.
maybe in hindsight we could have worked out a deal with the guy who's operating it because he looks like he's operating multiple units in the building, but we didn't want to have that headache.
And I think I don't know what it is in BC, but I'd imagine it's pretty clear cut. If someone's using it and it's against the purposes that for the zoning allows in that area, then it should be a pretty clear cut process to get them evicted. You just have to
We're
prove
learning
that,
about.
right? Yeah. Okay.
So you're here in Toronto. You got this good job.
Yeah,
It's paying you well, I'd imagine.
it was paying me okay to
Okay,
get started.
It's paying you okay to get started, and then what? You just get the real estate bug again?
No.
Yeah. If you see the amount of
The real
designer
estate-
stuff that he wears, it's only
Yeah.
paying him okay,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
So this is what happened before my parents came over to Toronto. My mom got cancer. So I think it was the first year I went to university. That winter I came back, we went to the hospital, we did the colonoscopy, and then we found out on the spot she has colon cancer. And that was a turning point because from then on, our business, the music school business, just went flat down. And at the same time, they still had to support me and my cost of living here in Toronto, right? So what they did was they rented out part of their home. And this was a fluke as well. So we had a 3 garage, 2-story, like a big home, right? And part of it was severed by the previous owner. I think it used to be a theater room, but it was a perfect configuration. And it had a kitchen, 2 baths, kitchen, 2 bedroom, and 1 bath. And it's got its own separate entrance as well. Not basement, to the side of the home. Almost like a addition to a garage. So we started renting that out, and it wasn't enough. And my mom did a homestay, which is kind of like you rent to student, but you take care of their meals as well. That's how she supported, and the line of credit. Yeah, that's a big one. So by that time, we went through probably 3 houses. Every 2-3 years, we would flip and update. Yeah. And we had a substantial equity. So we just lived off on those income as well as line of credit. And that's how we survived. until my mom finished her chemo.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was a aha moment.
that-
Holy
the-
smokes, like real estate thing is real.
The
Yeah.
chemo went okay. Your mom's fine.
Yeah, yeah. So during that time, I think she had another buddy who had a same cancer. That person didn't survive, but my mom did.
Wow.
man.
So
Okay, so it's ingrained in you now that real estate has a benefit because it can produce income if you need it.
if you needed it,
And it sounds like you had a line of credit, so you were also tapping into some of the appreciation gains because unlike Japan, British Columbia real estate goes up in value compared to the Canadian dollar,
that's right.
and you were able to benefit that way as
You know,
well.
we've heard that type of thing. Like it's not very uncommon that people don't realize the value of having an asset base like real estate or other things until something dramatic happens in their life, and they, you know, and then all of a sudden some sort of income stream dries up,
Yep.
and there's these other income streams that they're just using as, you know, just kind of almost not thinking about.
Yeah.
They realize they're like, holy cow, these are now far more valuable to me
Yeah,
than, you know, that they put them in place early, because then if you don't realize when you need them until it's almost too late, right? And it's we've heard that a number of times, especially with health issues, when people have had health issues, and the difference is made, not even necessarily allowing them to get any procedures or something that they need, but just giving them the peace of mind so that they can take the time off work and not have to stress about things, and give themselves the chance to recover that they need.
yeah. Pure accidental. We didn't know what line of credit was. The bank wanted to give us more line of credit. We were like, we don't need all these debt. But
Yeah.
it was very useful.
You take this knowledge, now real estate's ingrained in you, and this is why you get into real estate here in the Toronto area?
No. Still, at that time, I was still fluffy. I knew line of credit, but I didn't know I didn't study real estate investing. Yeah.
So how long were you in your job in this mechanical engineering role
Right.
before you started to get frustrated and think you needed to do something else?
That's right. So at this job, I got 2 promotions. I went from a regular engineer to a senior engineer, and then I went to project manager, and in the end, managing a huge supply chain side of things. And every time I got a promotion, I feel like my life didn't get ahead, and I didn't save more, but instead I got more work. And I became extremely frustrated because I spoke Japanese. I have to listen to what the mother company is telling me to do, as well as trying to make our on-site management, like the local management, happy. So I was being sandwiched from both sides.
You're the classic middle manager, Charles.
And
I
just,
forgot you spoke Japanese, so that helped you in this role.
I don't know if it helped or it was a curse, because I was working almost day and night. There was no off for me, because when I got off work, Japan woke up, right? So yeah, it was a constant struggle. And just to put it in perspective, I was in charge of turning off all the suppliers in Japan that makes up these wings and fuselage parts, and source it off to a local supplier here or in Europe to begin making the parts. So fade out and fade in.
What was the business decision behind that? Why were they
Cash flow.
cash flow? So just cost. They wanted cheaper.
Cash flow, as well as soon as the assembly package becomes North American duty, then it makes sense for the parts to be made close to it.
Because they
as
don't
well.
have to pay tax on the parts coming
Right.
into it.
Yeah. So I did the wings first, and then did the fuselage, and all the assembly, everything, final assembly to the bombardier, everything was done here. And the next thing was the parts.
Is it just me? But when you hear that they're like, cost saving measures, so we have to find new suppliers, and they're building planes that you fly in. Is it just me, or does that you just don't like hearing that? I'd rather them just worry
Yeah.
about getting the best damn parts they could for the plane.
Yeah.
So you get Charles.
Yeah.
agreed. Yeah. So you're getting crushed in this role,
Crushed. Yeah.
and then you just have a breaking point. Like, what's the breaking point here?
Yeah. So the breaking point is I feel like I couldn't get ahead. I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't talk anything about investing or trying to start a side hustle with these guys because it was seen as a betrayal, right? And anytime I would mention that, the Japanese management will feel like, oh, you have time, you have the mental time to read
Wow.
self-help books, you have the mental time to start a side hustle. Oh, we better give you more jobs.
You're not working enough. Yeah.
Wow.
Not working enough.
Mhm.
So that's when I find out, okay, this is not it for me. And I saw my directors and how they started working earlier and earlier and earlier. So now imagine today, those directors begin work 5 a.m. So what they have to wake up at 3:30. When I started, we started work at 8:30.
Until when was your typical day?
8:30 to 4, around there.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it
It was a
more
normal.
normal day. Yeah, yeah.
But as things got more and more difficult for North American assembly, and we got more and more job here to do, it became earlier shift, and people were working over and longer and overtime. It's just it was getting pretty hard.
So then
So-
you made the jump.
So 2017, real estate market was pretty good, right? Same thing. What my mom does, the kids learning music and my mom talking real estate. Just 2017 alone, she was able to refer so many real estate deal business to other realtors that she made a pretty good, decent side pocket.
Was she still investing during this time, or I'm guessing maybe because of the health issues that it changed the finances. So you still had the one condo, but were you or the family continuing to invest and acquire properties, or no?
No.
Okay.
No, but she
okay.
was making pocket change through deals.
Yeah, yeah.
And through referrals. So that's when she said, you know what, this could be a real thing. We want to keep it within the family. You, the oldest son, you're going to go get a real estate license. But to my heart, I was always an investor, right? So I was thinking about buying another one and another one. And during that time, I dove into podcast and audiobooks because I didn't have time when I got back home. I didn't have time when I was at work. So the only time I had was me stuck in traffic. And I started listening to audiobooks. I started listening to Gary Vee. And then I started listening to Rich Dad Poor Dad. And it just felt like, what, there's another world outside of this 9 to 5. And maybe if I just got to know the right person, I can get out. And I listened to podcasts. The first podcast was very good. And then the second podcast I listened to was Erwin Zitos. And that year, so during this time, I was still working 9 to 5, and the company sent me to Japan for long-term duties. I was in Japan 6 months, 4 months at that time, but I was studying real estate license. So I did my 5 courses. It took me 12 months. And after that, I reached out to Erwin's team. And Erwin wouldn't talk to me. So it was James Meggs who called me back. That's how it began.
Wow.
Officially learning about real estate investing and learning about how to become a real estate tradesperson.
How many people have changed their lives by listening to podcasts in traffic? So many.
He said Rich Dad Poor Dad too. How many people have got a different line of thinking from that book?
Yeah.
Right. So many people. It takes a topic that is not covered and breaks it down into a very plain English in a parable format. I'm saying parable. I don't know if I know there's a big debate whether it's true or not, right? But just a story version of it that you can just kind of relate to and understand.
That's right. The 4 quadrants were mind blowing. Before that, nobody talked to me about asset reliability. Mm-hmm. Nobody talks about self-employment or business. And nobody talks about difference between income and wealth. That's something I learned throughout, in this journey as well, right? Like a typical person would think, oh, I want to get rich. I want to make more money.
Yeah, so you make $200,000 a year.
But you have no wealth.
So you speak to James. You have your real estate license at this point?
I think I was almost there. Yeah, I think
Okay.
I had 2 more courses and I was almost ready to get licensed. I called up James. Oh, James reached out to me because
Okay,
I
this is
reached
for
out to Erwin.
context for anyone listening who doesn't know James. James works with Irwin. They're both part of the Rockstar brokerage. So that's kind of where Charles enters this whole world here at Rockstar.
Yeah.
James calls you back,
Yeah.
but you're still working. So I'm
Still
I'm
working.
very interested in the moment that you decide to quit. So how does that go down? Like what's the process to that from the moment you're talking to James? How long after until you're quitting your job?
I never did. That's the truth. The truth was that I was on the team for 2 and a bit years, and throughout time they taught me everything, the strategy, how to become a realtor, how to become an investor.
Okay, so
What's a
sorry,
good
you mean
measure?
working with James?
Working with
You're on-
James and the
okay,
team.
Got
right?
it. Okay.
Getting me up to speed. But I never had the courage to quit, and I made myself a plan how to quit. I made a master schedule of how I'm gonna refinance the property.
The engineer in you
Yeah.
was coming out. Yeah, yeah.
I have so many case A, case B, case C. And you know what? I couldn't pull the trigger. And Erwin told me to hire his coach at that time as well. So while I joined the team, I think because Erwin doesn't have time to teach me, James also was busy with his business. So he told me just join Rockstar Inner Circle, which was mind-blowing. That's where I learned almost everything in terms of investments and also business starting. That's how I get to know you guys. And at the same time, I hired Erwin's coach. Yeah, Miriam Gillespie. So she was there. She did one-on-one with me for about a year and a half. And that was a big one too, because her cost was not cheap. And for me, my thinking was, how can I quit my job when I'm taking on more debt or cost? I shouldn't say cost, investment.
Investment in yourself. But
In
yeah,
myself.
I see what you're saying. Another
So I
expense
was
is in your life.
Another expense. Yeah, it was not cheap. But I did it because I thought, I don't know what I don't know, but I have the motivation and I think I can make it work, right? As long as I'm earning. So let's see how it goes. So that's how it began. The team, the Rockstar Inner Circle.
Why?
the
And this is going to
coach.
sound like a self-serving question because, we run the Rockstar Inner Circle, but why was that you said mind-blowing. Why was it mind-blowing?
Because it was the only opportunity I can come in physically to a class and engage with people that are in the same shoes or other investor who are in middle of a project, and we're learning a specific strategy in a classroom setting.
So you had found your people?
Yes. Yeah, and it was probably the most formal education I received in terms of real estate investment. Because before that, it was just podcasts. And podcasts, even though it's addictive, no matter how many times I listen to it, the topic will change, and I feel like you can never get in deep with one particular strategy. But here at Rockstar, you have a coach who's teaching you the strategy. You can ask them. You have direct access with them for an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And that opened up everything.
Sometimes
That gave you more confidence too.
That's interesting to hear because sometimes I think maybe we've been doing this so long we just kind of like discount it because
No.
it's kind of like, yeah, of course, this is the way you do a student rental. Here it is. Like you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
blindfold
here you
Nick and
go.
myself.
Yeah, yeah.
At this point, we feel like you could blindfold us. Just tell us what city we're in. I can touch a brick wall, ask you a couple questions, and we'll
Yeah.
say buy or don't buy. But I understand. I need to be reminded sometimes that if you're not in it all the
No.
time, it's very eye-opening.
It's new to you, like
Yeah.
anything else.
Like
Or we
anything,
get
yeah.
this
For a
one, yeah.
regular person who maybe have 1 or 2 regular realtors in their sphere of influence, it's very difficult to get that type of information. Market rent, the ARVs, things to watch out for, lessons learned. Like these are the things you don't find those people in the general
Got
public.
it. So then this whole, you hired the coach, joined Rockstar Inner Circle, and then you still have this job. So
Still have the job.
so what happens? This is like a suspense drama at this point. A thriller. What
Yeah.
happens?
So I was doing showings, weekends, and evenings. right? I was trying to do everything. I was going to Kitchener, I was going to Welland, I was going to Hamilton, I was going to Oshawa. I was doing everything that I thought I needed to do, that my coach was telling me, the team was telling me, while handling the 9-to-5 job. And the 9-to-5 job at this point has quickly become 14-hour plus job, right? And I didn't have the courage. The honest truth is I didn't have the courage to quit until I was forced to. My mind was already not with the company, of course. So from becoming proactive guy to a very reactive, just salary guy trying to kill time, quickly became very, very difficult to stay there. And just recently, when the pandemic hit, actually before that, our factory had a flood. For some odd reason, it had a flood. So we couldn't go back to the office. So I was already kind of at home, like part-time. And then pandemic hit, and the company decided to reduce their workforce. And I was chosen as part of the person to be let go with a 6 months severance, very good severance. And I was like, wow, this must be my opportunity. But my reaction, my automatic reaction was, oh God, oh man, I gotta find another job. That was my instant reaction for that week. But after a week, I don't know what happened, but I just stick to, so I have something called a KPI, Key Performance Index, that I worked with Marianne, my coach. And as long as I just focused every week on the specific task that I need to get it done, business start flowing. And I feel good. And I was able to tell the world that I'm a full-time real estate investor / realtor, right? It just changed everything.
I feel like just clapping right now. Good for you.
So,
holy smokes, man. What a journey.
But the week after I was let go by my day job, I was also let go by the Irwin's team. So we had a conflict for various reasons that it just didn't work out. So things happened back to back. Company let go. I think I quit coaching, and then next thing I find out I'm no longer with the team. And
Charles, we had no idea you were going through all this. Holy smokes.
So,
but you didn't leave Rockstar.
No.
Yeah, that's that. We had no idea. Nick, you had no idea, did you?
I didn't know. I remember when you transitioned full time. It was early during when the pandemic hit, because Charles asked, he's like, "Hey, can I come into the office and work?" And the office was it was almost a ghost town, right? So I'm like, well, yeah, it's tons of room. It's no problem. So you would come in, and to your credit, you put your head down and you came and you sat down regularly every day. And I guess you had a new version, or if the coaching was quit, or the old version of your KPIs, and you just kind of stuck with things. And
to build momentum, to your credit.
To build momentum. And there was a little bit of frustration, I think, too, because the momentum is a tough thing to build. Like Tom said. So early on, there just wasn't some things happening. And you were like, hey, when does this kind of start? And I'm like, look, man. And I remember talking to you in the kitchen. I'm like, I wish I had a magic answer for you. I can tell you, though, that it's the toughest thing to get going, and you just got to stick with it, because you were doing some of the right stuff, right? And then things started clicking, though, right? I guess around last summer, things started kind of clicking for you.
Yes. It was very lonely as well, because I had nobody to talk to, and my wife, by the way, my wife is new to the country, so there's not much conversation happen within the house that I can bounce off ideas with. And
where is she from?
She's from Taiwan.
And how long have you been married?
2 years. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So if anybody listening to this think, there's a magic way or A to Z process of how to quit your job and start real estate full time, no matter how much I planned, it didn't work out that way. But life has a way of pushing you through your uncomfortable zones, and as long as you work at what you need to do, it just happens.
What does your mother think right now?
She's still watching me.
She's talking about investing with the people from the music school.
Yeah,
so
she wants to buy. She wants to buy.
Yeah.
And your brother is in British Columbia somewhere, maybe?
No, my brother is here too. He
Okay.
recently graduated. He works in he's a biochemical degree person.
Oh, yeah, sounds like an easy degree.
Another easy
Yeah,
degree.
Yeah, so it's no
Just
problem.
knock off these easy
Yeah, yeah,
degrees.
yeah.
It's not as hard as my psychology degree, just for context. But yeah, I could see how that could be rather difficult.
Yeah, but my brother has a polar opposite personality than me. He's very, very introvert, and he doesn't really talk to people. He has a hard time talking to others, and he's not very driven. He's comfortable where he is. So I've always felt like
Which is fine too, right?
Well,
It's
I mean, the
what-
world needs people like that. Like if he's got a biochem and he's doing something in that field,
yeah.
the world needs people like that can buckle down and do that type of research and that type of work too. So there's a value to that for sure.
Yeah, my goal this year, or if it doesn't work out this year, then next year, I want to bring my brother into the Rockstar community, because I think there's a lot of value here that he can use. Even if it's one word from an investor or one word from you guys, it could click and it could ignite his ambition.
You know, at the beginning when you were talking about how in Japan there's a certain social culture where your confidence is, it's difficult to have maybe an independent confidence just because of the way the social fabric is in Japan. Some of the things we try to share at Rockstar, I don't know if you've resonated with them or heard them, is about your own personal development and what you can do in building momentum, building your own confidence. You can do anything that you put your mind to. Were these brand new concepts for you to hear?
Yes, but it felt like these were words that I wanted to put in words, but I couldn't before. And somehow it came out of your mouth, but it was in my subconscious mind. You know? So everything that you said, it resonates so much. And I feel like if this is not the place I want to be, then I don't know where it is. Because in this office, in this community, I have everything it takes for me to succeed and break out of the middle class.
Wow. It's astonishing to me that we really had no idea the depth and detail of your journey. Holy smokes.
Sometimes we're head down in our own,
Yeah.
and we don't,
Yeah,
we don't bring our heads up to kind of realize some of this stuff. That's really cool. Thank you.
Charles, there's
Yeah.
going to be challenges for you ahead, right? It's life. But just
gosh, yeah.
know you're developing a network of people around you here and beyond here that will support you through this whole
Yeah.
thing. So you have friends. You need something,
Thank you.
reach out. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the base of skills that you're developing for yourself, it just makes all the circumstances that come up when they come up again easier and easier to handle, right? You just become a more resourceful person over time when you got to deal with more stuff. So
All I knew about your story that one day was that you were born in China. No, I think we had somebody who wanted someone here to speak Mandarin. And I was like, Charles, do you speak Mandarin? And I was confused because for some reason I think I knew you were born in China, but then you didn't speak Mandarin. You're like, no, I grew up in Japan. So the whole thing was just confusing to me. And that was the impetus for this podcast. We're like, okay, there's some kind of story here that we need to get out. But I didn't know we were going to get all this. So very cool. So where do you go from here, Charles?
So I've helped out with several investors throughout the years already. It'll be kind of cool to see their first 200,000 in profit. That's kind of what I'm waiting for the first milestone, because 100,000 they already passed. So 200,000 would be a cool milestone to hit. Then after that, if I could help out more investors. Oh, by the way, guys, I just moved to Hamilton. So that was a big move. We moved last week from Toronto downtown, and it's a bungalow. We're gonna duplex it. We're gonna house hack. So
What is happening to Canada? We have someone born in China, grew up in Japan,
All my life.
lands in
BC.
British Columbia, comes to Toronto, and now lives in Hamilton,
Hamilton.
I know.
Ontario. Holy smokes! Well,
Yeah,
Hamilton is lucky to have you, man.
I've only lived in the city all my life, big cities, but we're loving it so far. And I think the fact that I'm able to act more quickly, it will help the investor that I'm helping with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more accessible if something happens to the property, or they want to see something quickly, or they want to do a virtual tour. Hamilton, Brantford, Welling, St. Catherine, I'm just more accessible.
you're there.
I'm
You're
there.
in the middle
I'm
of it
there.
now, so you're regularly
It's
there.
my
yeah.
backfloor. Yeah. So I think that will help with the business more. It was a big move that we did.
Cool.
And
Wow.
also adding this to our portfolio as well, right? Once we move out.
What area of Hamilton?
It's on the West Cliff. Yeah,
Cool.
very nice.
Yeah, awesome, man.
Very quiet and nice.
So, Charles, where there's more, you know what? I didn't realize we were going to get into all this good stuff because I haven't had a chance to talk to you about Bitcoin even. And not just that, your real estate properties that you prefer and don't prefer. Is there anything around the real estate properties that you like and don't like that
Yes.
you'd like to? Yeah, can you share that?
I own one property. It's nearby the lake in the Hamilton West Harbor area. It's a very nice area for the future development, but the property itself is like 18 something hundred, very, very old. The foundation itself is like a rock
We know
foundation.
because we own one
We
like
have
that.
one like that, yeah.
And and the exterior of the house is sided, and it's a semi. Okay, what happened was that we had an animal incident. So from both of the tenants got called, hey Charles, we hear some child up in the roof at middle of the night. I'm like, what do you mean? There must be a child up in the roof. So I'm like, okay, could it be like an animal or something? So we called the professionals. They told me first, no, it's gotta be just a small mice. So we set up the traps all around. It wasn't a mice. It's a little bit bigger. So next thing they told me, it's gotta be a rat. It's not as small as mice, but it's a little bit bigger. So it must be a rat. So we set up more traps, and it wasn't. And the week after, they told me it was a squirrel. It must be the squirrel going through the roof vents into the roof. And we have these vaulted roofs, so we don't really have access into the roof because it's all being exposed. And we have no way of getting in. So you have to tear down the roof. Or
Tom's been fighting with squirrels around his house for a long
Yeah.
time.
did you put the metal case?
Oh yeah, we've done
Yeah.
we've done everything, but I don't think
The
we've done
gates?
what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Was
then
this a shotgun?
and the week after that, we've been told
It's a bear.
It's none of this. It's not bear, but somehow it's animals going in through the deck up to the roof. And there must be a partition wall between the two semis.
Yeah, with the
that there's a
cavity.
gap, cavity that they're getting through.
Oh, jeez.
So we set up the animal trap. Guess what we find? A possum.
Oh
Holy.
gosh.
Until that
Have
time,
you seen a possum?
I've
Those
never
are
seen-
ugly animals, man. Nick, have you seen a possum?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
I've
God.
never seen a possum in my life. And what scared me was possum usually carry around their family or their children. So they're like, okay, what if they're having new babies in there? That instantly gave me like chills. I'm like, oh, you guys do whatever you need to do. Get them out there.
Yeah.
So we caught the possum, and the noise is still there. So we go back again. We set up the traps. Next week, it was a raccoon. Okay.
My
Now
God, there was a party. There was an animal party.
Animal
going on
party
Okay.
down there.
Was that the end?
So yes, this was the end. We had to do a lot of work ourselves to do the. We did like a metal framing around the deck just to close everything and to get all the animals out. But yeah, it worked out in the end with the help of our tenants and of course the professionals who help us get the animal out. But if you're a first-time investor, I would say be careful with older properties. Anything older than like 1900, you have to be careful.
Right,
Foundation
so you're developing a specialty of houses built
Yeah.
in the 1800s.
and sided homes. Make sure you get an inspection. I didn't get an inspection for that home. We got a deal, but we should have done an inspection afterwards.
And then most of the stuff you're helping people with is in the areas that you just mentioned. Are you
Yeah,
doing
Hamilton, yeah.
Are you doing downtown Toronto stuff as well right now?
Just for friends and family, but for now, I'm gonna focus on the West.
Okay, and your focus on the West is single family, semi-detached, townhome, and maybe condos as well? Is it all
Condos.
property types?
Yeah, and mainly bungalows that you can suite, or
Okay, so-
add a garden suite.
So adding a bungalow that you can add a legal garden suite or a
Yep.
second suite in it to increase the income on it.
That would be my number one strategy for now.
Okay, and then Charles, I don't think we haven't done podcasts in a while here because of some of our summer vacations. But I think somebody on our team is actually Mike, who's sitting right over there, was just filled Rockstar investor just filled a second suite in Hamilton at
Nice.
2,600 upstairs, 2,200 basement.
Is that inclusive with the
It's not.
utility?
I believe
I
it's.
think it was plus hydro.
Yeah, it might have been
Plus
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 hydro.
one thing.
Yeah.
I think it was plus hydro though.
But
Yeah.
still, those
Yeah.
are numbers we had never heard of.
Yes. Yeah, recently I did one 2,200 upper and then 1,650 in the basement. plus everything, plus all the utilities. So
And what was
maybe-
what was the purchase price on that property?
So at that time we bought for 660, but it already had a second kitchen, 2 bedroom in the basement, mostly done. We just have to legalize it and put up the separation walls.
616, about 4,000, just under
That was-
$4,000 in
That
rent,
was yeah 660.
something like that.
So if someone wants to find you and track you down, Charles, to work with you, talk with you, is there an email you can hand out, a phone
Yeah.
number? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, you can go to charlie.com, so CHARLLI.com, or charles@rockstarbrokerage.com, or you can find me, Charles Lee, at Instagram or Facebook.
Okay, and the URL, spell it out one more time.
CHARLLI,
Cool.
Charlie.
Awesome. Charles, thanks so much for sharing this. I
Thank
really
you so
didn't
much.
expect all this. So, and listen, I think we're grateful to have you as part of the Rockstar team, and someone with your mentality and your drive and the way you think about life. To have you part of this team is special for us. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.